All right, ladies and gentlemen, in the big leagues now. Oh. Well, that's the instruction manual. Pretty sizable. What do you think, honey? You excited? Ready? Oh. Big plastic thing. There it is. Look at it. So it's even plugged in already. Look at all the wires are plugged in. All right. Well, I guess we go install it now. All right, I'm really blown away by how quick that setup was. I just bolted the thing down to the roof. I'm lucky in that there's no obstructions because I'm out here on the water, and so it's got a full range of motion where it's at there at the roof. The question will be whether it can handle the storms and the winds, but from what I see online, it seems like it goes through some pretty intense winds on people's roofs, on their houses, so maybe I'll be fine. We got the router fired up, plugged in the app on this, fired it up. I'm now connected, and we're gonna do a speed test real quick. I don't really have anything to base these numbers off of because this is just so far from anything I'm used to seeing. First of all, it's in megabytes per second. Secondly, it's in hundreds of megabytes per second. Oh my God. On my cell phone, I'm getting 160 megabytes per second down and 14 megabytes per second up right now. It spiked well over 200, almost 300, but the consistent speed is down there. I have a really good Wi-Fi setup right here where the marina nearby is letting me use their Wi-Fi, and I have never seen it go over 10. So 160, I don't think I've ever had internet that fast. But I'm in Canada, so it's a bit different. And I'm on a boat, so it's very different. So this is costing me $130 a month. And I had to spend $600 on the satellite dish to begin with. So it's not cheap, but you know, by Canadian standards, it's also not expensive either. It's kind of what a lot of people are paying for internet. If you got decently fast internet, it's a good chance you're paying $100 or more a month for it here in Canada. Wow, I can hear it moving around up there. Okay, it has been 1 week with the Starlink system. I have used it in cloudy conditions, sunny conditions, windy conditions, stormy conditions. I've used it at night and in daytime, and I've noticed some differences. Right now I'm powering it off of my Blue Eddy power pack. This lets me track the amount of power that it uses. And also maybe just some more general usage, so like powering my laptop and that at the same time, because for a lot of off-grid people, if you don't have an internet connection, you're probably not going to use your technology quite as much. So this is relevant as well. You're not only considering how much power it uses, but also the other electronics you're going to use with it. That being said, I'm very happy. It's not perfect, but I'm very, very happy. Under calm, overcast conditions, which it is right now, it's amazing. There's no interruptions whatsoever. The connection is really fast. It's barely using any power at only 50 watts, which is a lot of power for a PoE powered device, but considering what it is a big satellite dish that moves around. It's really not that much juice. That being said, it doesn't always stay that low. I've seen a number as high as 170 watts, 175, somewhere in that range, and that was during a storm where it's adjusting constantly. Every few seconds it's adjusting, and the boat's moving a fair bit, and I had quite a few drops in connection. What does that mean? Well, that means that if you are into gaming, which I've been trying to do on this laptop, under stormy conditions, you're not on a boat, you're not going to be able to game. Not competitively anyways. You'll be able to game locally, sure, no problem, and you'll be able to download resources off the internet, no problem. Streaming is no problem. The interruptions are very momentary, and the speed is fast enough that it's Like Netflix, never a problem. All my streaming stuff, never a problem. I have a 4K television. I'm watching high resolution stuff, and I have no issue. The issue comes in video calls, and it comes in like competitive gaming of any kind, where you're, milliseconds of reaction time make a big difference. And the milliseconds of reaction time, if it happens to fall in a moment where the satellite dish is readjusting, you're gonna lose. You're gonna get shot in your first-person shooter game. You're gonna lose the game, or you're gonna drop that call for just like a fraction of a second. It's very quick. They've done a very good job of making it incredibly seamless, but it still happens. So you're gonna notice those interruptions. I think that's just a matter of fact that it's a moving satellite dish. You just can't get around it. There's moving parts. I think further on, next generation or the generation after, maybe they will devise an antenna, a dish that doesn't require any moving parts, in which case it will only be obstructions that cause any kind of interruptions. And on a boat, that's not really a problem. So for power consumption, let's put this in layman terms. A lot of people with small systems calculate things in amp hours. Us with larger systems do things in watt hours because it's simpler. There's too many different voltages to deal with. If you have lithium stuff, you're dealing in watt hours now. It's the new standard. For those of you on the old standard, the dish is currently burning 4 amps of 12 volt power, which is a fair amount of juice for a small off-grid system. If you're in a storm, it's burning over 10. That's a lot of power. So if you have a deep cycle battery with let's say 100 amp hours of storage on it, you're going to burn through it in less than, like, in a night, basically 8 hours. And that's the thing with these systems, right? That would be running all the time. It's not like you're going to turn on and off your internet every time you're using it and not using it. Most people just leave that stuff on. So this power consumption is very relevant to anyone running a smaller off-grid system. A lot of boats tend to have more than your average like camper van, and they're kind of in the same ballpark as like bigger RVs. You're still going to have to think about it at that level. I would say that most RVs and stuff or boats, you're going to basically want one more deep cycle battery to make up the power consumption that this is going to introduce. Or you're going to want to turn it off a lot of the time. One way or the other. You can't just make that power come out of nothing. It's not a massive load, but it runs all the time, and the weather affects how much power it burns, which can be a real problem here in the wintertime, because of course we get all our storms in the wintertime at night when there's no solar coming in. And if you're on the hook, or if you're on a ball or something out here and you're not plugged into shore power, well, that's what you're stuck with. So it's going to burn some juice. You're going to need another battery. So calculate that into the cost. Now, I've got my first bill. It was $148 Canadian, which is just about 100 and change American. And dish is 500 American. It was 660 something with taxes or whatever it was Canadian. So it's expensive. And my speed, I've got a speed report. I showed it to the guy who runs the yacht club here, and he's paying for very expensive internet. But he's getting actually the same speed. So his internet is likely more expensive. I didn't ask him what he pays for it, but I'm going to guess it's more expensive than, but not much more, than my $148 or 44, whatever it was. And so it's definitely for Canadians. It's going to be in the ballpark, especially if you're rural at all. This is an option. It's going to be roughly equal for a lot of folks, and for a lot of folks it'll be a very good deal. There's plenty of parts of Canada that get electricity and don't need an off-grid solution, don't really care how much power it burns, because on your like meter you're not going to see it much, but for an off-grid solution you will see it. So basically I wouldn't suggest this if you've got less than 200 amp hours of storage for your off-grid system. This might not be a good solution, because you run this, you run a laptop, maybe a television and a fridge, and there goes all your battery. That's pretty much everything right there in an evening. And so not ideal, but it's in the same ballpark of those loads, right? Like a small fridge probably burns maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the day, than the satellite dish burns. Your laptop similar power. Like my laptop's a gaming laptop, so it revs all the way up to 125 watts, but while it's idling along, it burns about 50 watts. It's pretty much the same thing. So just something to think about. Power constraints. Performance-wise, very happy. Upload speeds are not as fast as I'd like. Download speeds are fantastic. No complaints. Yeah, absolutely perfect for this boat. Really excited to do more live streams and get more content out to you guys, thanks to this awesome little dish. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this episode. For those of you who don't know, Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of courses branching all kinds of interesting categories. You've got sewing tutorials, you've got woodworking tutorials, painting, a lot of technical skills around. As I mentioned before, I've been doing some programming, and now that I have a decent internet connection, I can start uploading some data, and I'm looking into data cataloging and data uploading using Raspberry Pis. There's fantastic starter courses on Raspberry Pis all over Skillshare, and I'm digging my way through them, learning a lot. For those of you interested in trying out what Skillshare has to offer, the link is in the description. The first 1,000 you to click that link, get a free 1-month trial. Loads to learn from there. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this episode, for continuing to curate fantastic learning videos, and thank you all for watching and clicking that link. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time.